Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something raw, ruthless, and steeped in blood. Life as a Viking, but not as a legendary hero. No long ships laden with treasure, no glory of Valhalla awaiting you yet. Tonight, you're not Ragnar Lothbrok, you're just you, thrown unprepared into a brutal world of sacrifices, freezing cold, and gods who demand blood as tribute. Before we dive into the blood and mist of medieval Norway, take a quick second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely love exploring history this way. Also, drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is over there. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe stoke your imaginary heart fire, and settle in as we journey back to a time that's beautiful, bleak, and utterly forgiving. You awaken before dawn on a straw-filled mattress laid by the timber wall of your family's longhouse. The air is hazy with smoke from last night's fire, which still smoulders in the central hearth pit. It stings your eyes and throat as you take a breath, coughing quietly. A few feet away, you can make out the shapes of your parents and younger siblings still bundled in woolen blankets on their sleeping benches. Near the doorway, your cow shifts and lows softly. Yes, the family cow lives inside with you during the winter months. The warmth of human and animal bodies in the confined space is precious on a frigid night. You pull your rough wool cloak tighter around your shoulders. It's still dark. An icy draft snakes through gaps in the plank walls. A fine layer of frost coats the inside of the thatched roof above, sparking faintly in the dim glow of the embers. You can't feel your toes. The cold has crept in under the furs. Welcome to your morning in Kattegat, Norway, in the Viking Age. A world away from modern comforts, where daily survival is a gritty, full-body endeavour. Dawn comes slowly, a dull grey light seeping through the smoke hole in the roof. You rise from your straw bedding, wincing at the stiffness in your back. Sleeping on the floor in a smoky longhouse with only animal skins and straw for a mattress leaves you perpetually sore. You absentmindedly scratch at your scalp and feel a tiny louse, hardly surprising. Fleas and lice are a constant irritation in this age Viking. At least you own a bone comb. You run it through your tangled hair, hoping to scrape out a few pests as best as you can. Personal grooming is rough. There's no soap, just water and that comb for removing lice, which is one reason combs are among your prized possessions. You sigh and slip on your shoes, which are simple turned shoes made of leather, still damp and cold from yesterday's chores. They offer little insulation, and the dirt floor of the longhouse is like ice. Quietly you shuffle to the hearth and stir the coals. Your mother told you to always keep the hearth fire alive. Without it, the whole family could freeze. You feed a few dry twigs to the glowing embers and gently blow until a small flame springs up. Immediately new smoke billows and you blink through watering eyes. Every breath tastes of wood smoke and the sharp tang of yesterday's cooking. The scent mingles with the barnyard odour of the cow and sheep penned at the far end of the hall. It's not pleasant, but it's normal. This is how a Viking longhouse smells and feels in the early morning. Smoky, smelly, and cold. A faint light grows at the half-open door where the night's snowfall has blown in a powdery drift. You push open the heavy door, its iron hinges creaking. Outside, the world is muffled in white. Snow covers the roofs of the outbuildings and the fields beyond. A gust of winter wind immediately knifes through your tunic, making you shudder violently. You step out just long enough to relieve yourself by the fence. There's no indoor latrine or plumbing. That concept won't reach these parts for many centuries. The snow is knee-deep and brilliantly pale in the early light. Your breath hangs in clouds as you hurry back inside, slamming the door against the wind. Inside the longhouse, your little movement has awoken the others. You can hear your father clearing his throat and rising with groan, and your mother already fussing over the clay pot that hangs over the rekindled fire. The baby starts whimpering, likely hungry or cold or both. Your mother will nurse him soon, but first she needs to get the morning meal started. In truth, morning meal is a generous phrase. Vikings like you typically eat only 2 meals a day. The first, jammal, is more like a late breakfast or early lunch, after you've already been working for a few hours. The second and main meal, natmal, is eaten in the evening. Your stomach rumbles, but you won't be eating much until later. For now, you help your mother and sister prepare a little something to fuel the morning's work. You rake through the storage bin and pull out a hard heel of rye bread. It's tough and dry, but edible. Your mother ladles some leftover stew from last night into an iron pot to serve warm. Yesterday's stew of fish and root vegetables will be reheated and served again this morning. It's a thick, greasy pottage that contains bits of dried herring, carrots, and barley. As it heats, the familiar smell of fish broth fills the house. You've eaten this same fish stew for days now. Variety in diet is a luxury you rarely have, especially in winter. With no fresh meat available until the hunting party returns or the livestock can be slaughtered in spring, you're down to dried or salted fish and stored root vegetables. You break off a piece of the rye bread loaf. It's dense and a bit sour, made from the stone ground rye and barley flour, bits of bran that catch in your teeth. It was baked weeks ago and is hardened almost to the texture of a cracker. You soften it by dipping it in the warm stew. It isn't delicious by modern standards, but it fills your belly. At least it's warm. You wash it down with a horn of ale. Yes, ale for breakfast. The ale is weak and homebrewed, more like a malty porridge water than a strong beer. Safe drinking water isn't exactly a given, so everyone from children to elders drinks weak ale daily. Your mother brewed this ale herself. Women are responsible for brewing and food preparation in the household. The mildly alcoholic ale is often safer and more palatable than water that might carry disease, and it provides extra calories too. You take a long swig, tastes a little sour with a yeasty aftertaste, but it's better than going thirsty. By the time your simple morning fare is done, the pale winter sun is inching above the horizon. The world outside glows bluish-white with snow and ice. It's time to get to work. There are 1,000 chores waiting, and everyone must do their part to survive. Your family, like most Norse families, lives on a farmstead, and nearly all the food and goods you use are produced by your household. You shrug on a heavier wool cloak and step back outside into the biting cold to begin the day's labour. Your father is already out by the shed, pulling out the wooden plough from where it leans against the wall. It's planting season soon. Spring comes late in Norway, but it will come. And he wants to be ready to till the fields as soon as the ground thaws. You run to join him. Your boots crunching in the snow, the air is so cold in your nose that it almost burns, but you know you'll be sweating soon enough once the hard work begins. Together, you and your father hitch our lone ox to the plough. The beast snorts steam into the air, its coat shaggy and its horns rimmed with frost. You pat its flank and whisper a prayer to Freya, the god of fertility, for a good planting season. The ox's large, dark eyes roll at you placidly, oblivious to your hopes for the harvest. The plough is a simple ard, basically a pointed stick with an iron tip. It scratches at the soil rather than turning it. Iron ploughs haven't reached your village. Your plough is mostly wood and prone to breaking. In fact, you can already see the spike was damaged the last time the fields were worked, so you'll need to carve a replacement point or do some repairs soon. For now, though, it's more important to clear the fields of winter debris and spread fertilizer. Fertilizer, of course, means manure, one of your least favourite jobs. You fetch a crude wooden pitchfork and begin to spread the manure that's been piled up behind the barn. It's a foul task, but fertilizing the fields with animal and human dung is critical if you hope to grow anything in this poor soil. The smell is horrendous, ammonia and rot, and it clings to your boots and clothing. You try to joke to your father that at least the stink might keep the wolves away. He just grunts in response, too busy guiding the ox and ard. As you work, you notice a familiar figure trudging up with 2 buckets of water yoked across his shoulders. It's Gunnar, your family's thrall. Yes, your family has a slave. Not a large farm, but your father managed to acquire Gunnar as spoils in a raid some years back. Gunnar is an Irishman, captured on a voyage across the sea. He's strong, but the harsh life of servitude has etched lines into his face. He offers you a timid nod as he passes. You nod back. You might be the son of the house, but you've never been cruel to Gunnar. Still, he knows his role and speaks only if necessary. He heads towards the livestock troughs to pour the fresh water for the animals. The most unpleasant and backbreaking chores like hauling water and dung are often done by slaves, and Gunnar's been busy since before first light. For a moment you reflect that as hard as your life is, at least you're free. Gunnar's day will be even longer, with no promises of reward beyond a bowl of stew. The idea of human rights doesn't exist here. Thralls are property, part of the farm's resources, just like the ox or plough. By mid-morning your muscles ache and you smell absolutely awful, but a large section of field is now covered in rich brown fertilizer, ready to be ploughed under once the ground thaws. You pause to catch your breath, leaning on your pitchfork. Your hands are red and numb from the cold, except where they've blistered from gripping the tool. Your father wipes sweat from his brow, even in the chill. The effort has him drenched. He gestures that it's enough work on the fields for now. Together you walk back to the longhouse, stomping snow and muck off your shoes at the threshold. Inside, the warmth and smoky air embrace you. It's almost pleasantly cozy compared to the freezing wind outside. Your mother is busy at her loom, spinning wool yarn that will later be woven in fabric. In the dim light by the doorway, you see the vertical loom set up, with newly dyed wool threads, a faded reddish-brown colour, weighted by stones. She's been working on weaving fabric for a new sail. With war preparations underway, the women of the village have been labouring for months to produce sturdy woolen sail for the longship. Making a sail is a colossal task. It takes a vast amount of wool from dozens of sheep, spun into yarn, woven into strips, and sewn together. Your mother's fingers are rough and calloused from years of spinning and weaving. You watch her push the shuttle back and forth, slowly but steadily creating cloth. Nearby, your sister is mending a wool tunic and humming softly. Women's work, they call it. But without it, you'd have no clothes, no sails, no linen. In the corner, the baby is nursing your mother's breast as she works, multitasking in the way only a mother can. Women's primary tasks include caring for children, preparing food, and making clothing and textiles. Contributions just as vital as the men's farming and fighting. While taking a short break, you decide to tend to your weapons and gear. After all, everyone knows that as soon as the weather improves, the Jarl intends to set sail on a raid. You fetch your segs, a long knife, and your hand axe from the peg on the wall where they hang. That axe head is a bit rusty, so you squat by the firelight and begin grinding it against a sharpening stone. Not everyone owns a fancy sword. In fact, swords are rare and costly, reserved for wealthy nobles. Your family certainly doesn't have one of those pattern-welded beauties you've heard about. Your father carries a simple spear and a stout axe when he goes to battle. Like most common Vikings, he favours the axe. It's affordable, versatile, and deadly in the right hands. The axe is the most common hand weapon among your people, a tool by day and weapon by necessity. Your own axe is small, a one-handed bearded axe with a worn wooden handle. It's nothing special, but it could cleave a skull if swung hard enough, and you've used it plenty for splitting firewood. You run your fingers over the nicks on its edge, perhaps marks from past scuffles or just chopping timber. Setting the axe aside, you check your spear, propped by the door. The iron spearhead is securely riveted to the ash shaft. The point is sharp, but you hone it a little more. Spears are the common weapon of the peasant warrior class, and you'll carry one into battle. It's about 2.5 meters long, perhaps 8 feet. You imagine thrusting it over a shield wall or casting it at a charging foe. A flutter of nerves hits your stomach at the thought. To steady yourself, you inspect your round shield. It hangs on the wall, a wooden circle about 80 centimeters across, made of linden planks. You had fashioned it with your father last year, cutting boards from a felled tree and fastening a wrought iron boss at the center. Around the rim, You tacked on some rawhide to help preventing it from splitting. It's crudely painted with a black and white spiral design. You aren't an artist, but it gives the shield a bit of character. The shield is light but fragile. Shields are typically made of soft wood like linden or fir, edged in leather, and are not very durable. You know from practice that a strong axe blow can rend a shield in two. You pray that won't happen to yours when the time comes. Hanging next to the shield is a simple helmet, a recent acquisition, handed down from an older cousin who traded up for a finer one. It's an iron cap with a nose guard, and plain and functional helmet. Now, it doesn't have horns. Nobody in your village has ever worn a horned helmet. It's a fanciful idea from stories outsiders will tell in later centuries. Your helmet is battered and a bit too large, so you took some wool inside to make it sit snug on your head. There is no mail armor for you. That is far too expensive. If you're lucky, you might wear a thick padded tunic for some protection, but otherwise your heavy wool cloak and layers of clothes are all that will soften an enemy's blow. Viewing your humble armaments, you can't help but grin darkly. A modern person might feel under-equipped, but for a Viking farm boy like you, this is a respectable kit. A spear, a wooden shield, and a good axe are pretty much standard for going Viking raiding. Only the richest warriors carry swords, and fancy double-edged axes or ornate blades are stuff of legends or the Jarl's armory. Outside, you hear the distant sound of an iron bell clanging from the direction of the village commons. That's the Jarl's call. He's summoning all households to gather. The dull gong, gong echoes over the frozen fields. You hastily put on a knitted wool cap and gloves and rejoin your father for the trek into the village centre. Your mother stays home with the little ones. Typically only the free men and some women attend these things. But today's meeting concerns the raid and everyone else's role, so some women will attend as well. The snow crunches under your feet as a few flurries drift from the overcast sky. Your breath fogs the air as you walk. Kattegat is not a very large settlement. Collection of farmsteads scattered around a protected bay, with a modest wooden pier where a couple of trading boats and the Jarl's longship are pulled up. As you and your father approach the meeting area, you see others converging. Rugged men in fur cloaks, women with shawls over their braided hair, even a few other youths like you tagging along as their father's side, trying to look serious. In the centre stands Jarl Sigvard, on a wooden box so he's visible. He's a grizzled man, with a streak of grey in his beard and a missing finger, lost to a sword in his younger days raiding, rumour has it. He raises a hand to quiet the murmurs of the crowd. "It's decided," he announces in a booming voice. "When the ice breaks and the wind turns favourable, we sail for Northumbria." A hush, followed by excited murmuring. Northumbria! That is a rich kingdom in England across the sea. Many of you have heard stories, and some veterans among the crowds have memories of the great raid of a Northumbrian monastery years ago, when monks were slaughtered and treasures seized. That raid, more than 30 years past, was led by a different chieftain, but it opened everyone's eyes to the wealth of the West. To this day, the tales of the attack on the Holy Land, Lindisfarne, you later learned it was called, are told with glee in Kattegat. Old Egil, an elderly warrior who stands near the Jarl, was on that raid as a young man. He lost an eye to a defending monk's lucky strike, so he boasts. But he still likes to recount how easy the plunder was. He once described to you how the monks cowered like sheep and were cut down mercilessly, their church altars smashed and their gold and silver treasures looted by laughing Norsemen. It's a grim tale by modern standards, but here it's practically a legend of glory. Now, hearing the Jarl's announcement, Idril's remaining eye gleams with excitement at the prospect of more Christian gold. Your stomach flips in a mix of fear and anticipation. You grip your spear's shaft a little tighter. The Jarl continues outlining the plan. When the weather improves, likely in a few weeks, they will take 2 longships, his own and one belonging to his allied neighbour, and sail west. The primary target, coastal villages and monasteries in Northumbria. We'll return by harvest, he declares. That draws some relieved nods. Leaving for too long could spell disaster for the farms, as the crops need tending. By promising to be back by harvest time, the Jarl assures the community that the raiders will also be home in time to help bring in the grain. He also mentions they'll bring back grain from abroad if possible, though privately, most space on the ships will be for treasure and perhaps slaves. The meeting breaks up with an almost festive air. Raiding is dangerous, yes, but it's also an opportunity for wealth and honour. And truth be told, many are just eager to escape the monotony of farm life for a bit of adventure. You as a young would-be warrior feel a mixture of pride and dread. This will be your first time going Viking. To go Viking is actually a verb for setting out on raid. You've longed to prove yourself, but you've also never been farther than a few days' journey from home. The open sea, foreign lands, and real battle, these are daunting unknowns. For the next few days, the village bustles with preparations. The longship is taken out of its winter shelter and inspected. She's a beautiful vessel, a sleek, clinker-built longship with a single mast, oars along each side, and a fearsome dragon's head carved at the prow, symbolically to ward off spirits and terrify enemies. She's about 20 meters long, built for both rowing and sailing. You help a group of men drag the ship down the pebbled strand to the water's edge. Once the ice on the bay has melted, everyone grunts and slips as you move this enormous wooden craft. It weighs a couple of tons, but with enough rollers and muscle power, it slowly reaches the lapping cold water. The Jarl himself supervises, barking orders. Once afloat, the ship is tied to the dock for loading. You spend hours sealing the hull, smearing a mix of pine tar and animal fat, seal blubber, into the seams between the planks to ensure she doesn't leak on the voyage. The smell of tar is sharp and medicinal, clinging to your hair and clothes, but it's a familiar and almost comforting smell to you. It means a voyage is near. Your mother and the other women have finally finished the new sail. It's woven from undyed wool, a patchwork of brownish-grey panels, heavy and strong. Together with some friends, you help carry the rolled-up sail to the ship. It's so heavy it requires 8 of you to lift. This sail is the pride of the village women's work, and without it the journey would be impossible. Viking ships rely on their great square sails, along with oars to cross vast distances. Carefully you pass the bundle up to the crew on deck, who begin bending the sail to the yardarm. When it finally unfurls to test the rigging, it billows out in a broad expanse of wool catching the breeze. Someone has dyed a simple red stripe across it, a touch of flair for the Jarl's flagship. You step back and admire the sight of the longship resting in the bay, her fresh sail fluttering. In that moment, even you feel a bit of awe. This wooden dragon will carry you over the seas to lands you've only heard about in fireside stories. You run a hand along the ship's hull, fingers tracing and overlapping oak planks. Each rivet and timber was placed by skilled hands. Perhaps the gods themselves will watch over this vessel. As the final day before departure wanes, the Jarl calls for a feast, a grand banquet, to ask the gods for good fortune. As evening falls, the whole community gathers in the Jarl's longhouse, which is larger and newer than most. Inside, torches and oil lamps cast flickering light on the wooden walls, illuminating shields and weapons mounted as decorations. The longhouse is packed. The warmth of so many bodies and the roar of multiple fires make it almost sweltering, a welcome change from the biting cold outside. You squeeze onto a bench at a long trestle table between your father and a couple of other young men who are also joining the raid. The smell in the hall is an overwhelming symphony. Wood smoke, roasting meat, spilled ale, unwashed bodies and a hint of pine boughs strewn on the floor as fresh bedding. It's not entirely pleasant, but it is the smell of life and celebration in this area. On the central hearth, a whole goat is being roasted on a spit, its fat dripping and sizzling in the flames. This goat was slaughtered just an hour ago as a sacrifice to the gods. The blood of the animal was collected in a bowl and sprinkled on the earth, and perhaps on some statues of the gods. a common ritual in honor of Odin, Thor, Freya, and others. Now the goat's carcass turns slowly over the fire, soon to fill everyone's bellies. Jarl Sigvard raises a horn of ale, no, mead, golden and gleaming, and a call for silence. He leads a toast. To Odin, wise old father, who guides us in war. To Thor, the thunderer, who protects us. To Njord, who steers us on safe seas. Skål. Everyone echoes the toast to the gods and drinks deeply. The mead is sticky sweet, made from fermented honey, a rare treat usually reserved for festivals. The warmth of the alcohol spreads through your chest. Cups and horns clang down on the tabletops as the Jarl's housecarls begin ladling out stew and carving meat for the feast. You tear into a hunk of tender roast goat legs spiced with herbs, a luxury far beyond your normal fish stew diet. The fat runs down your chin, and you wipe it with the back of your hand, grinning. Around you, voices rise in laughter and boisterous conversation. As the feast progresses, stories begin to flow as freely as the ale. Old Eagle, the one-eyed raider, stands and slams his cup down for attention. "Hear me, young ones," he rasps. "You think you're ready for glory? You know nothing. Let me tell you of the great raid on the island of Saxon monks." You perk up. You've heard this tale before, but it never gets old. Eagle launches into the story with relish. How their longships arrived at dawn on an unsuspecting monastery. How the Vikings leaped ashore with axes and swords in hand. He describes terrified monks in their robes, utterly unprepared for the violence, cut down as they tried to flee or hide behind wooden crosses. They thought their Christ would save them. Eagle sneers. Eliciting chuckles from the crowd. But we showed them Odin's fury. He swings an imaginary sword for emphasis. You find yourself smiling along, caught in the brutal excitement of the tale. He talks of the loot they gathered, silver chalices, gilded books, jeweled reliquaries, treasure beyond anything our simple farms had ever seen. And slaves too. Many captives were taken, those not killed outright. Gunnar the Thrall is living proof of that, you think quietly. Eagle finishes with a flourish. We sailed home loaded with so much wealth, the ship sat low in the water. Not a man of us perished that day. Odin favored us mightily. This is met with a roar of approval and pounding of fists on tables. Never mind that Eagle tends to embellish. You've heard another older rail whisper that a few Vikings did die that day, and the treasure wasn't that huge. In this hall, it's a rousing saga. The mood is euphoric. Someone else starts singing a ribald tune about a raider and a farmer's wife. Too much laughter. A few of the older women roll their eyes, but smile nonetheless. They've heard these vulgar songs since girlhood. Between stories and songs, more serious talks happen too. Your father and a few others discuss practical matters for the journey. How much water and food to pack, the need for extra oars and spare sails, and who will lead in the Jarl's absence. Those remaining will still need leadership to tend to the village. The blacksmith, a stout woman named Runa, mentioned she's sharpened every blade in the village for the occasion and made a bundle of new arrowheads. Some of the younger boys, not yet of fighting age, listen with envy and despair that they must stay behind. You notice one of them, barely 12, looking particularly dejected. He catches your eye and you give him an encouraging nod, as if to say, your time will come. Meanwhile, horns of ale and mead continue to be refilled. You drink deeply. This might be the last good ale you've tasted for weeks. As ship provisions will be simple and likely sour, the combination of a full belly and drink makes your head swim pleasantly. Amid the revelry, the Jarl stands once more, calling for silence. It takes a moment for the hall to quieten down, but finally he speaks in a grave tone. We embark on a dangerous journey, he says. Not all of us may return, so let each man make peace with his fate tonight. The hall falls silent, save for the crackle of the fires. You gulp. The reality of possible death flickers across every face, but the Jarl isn't trying to frighten you, just to solemnize. He lifts a horn and intones. To those who fall before us, and those who will fall In the days to come, may the Valkyries carry them to Valhalla. The crowd murmurs, Valhalla, and drinks. You do too, the mead burning slightly in your throat. The Jarl's right. Some of us will die out there. Will I be one of them? You push the thought away, but it lingers like a chill draft. To lighten the mood, one of the Jarl's house carls, a burly man named Sten, leaps onto the table, nearly knocking over a pot of stew, and begins a mock boast. I, Sten the Mighty, will personally slay 20 Saxons before breakfast on the first day ashore. Laughter erupts. Another shouts. And how many after breakfast? Oh, at least 30 more, Sten replies grandly, to more hilarity. Someone jokes that with Sten doing all the work, the rest of us can just take the monastery's ale and watch. The dark humour eases the tension. You find yourself laughing along, though your palms are sweaty at the thought of real battle. Your father claps you on the shoulder. Don't worry, he says in a low voice. Just stay by me, keep your shield up, and remember, no man lives a moment longer than the Norns have decreed. He's essentially saying that what will be, will be. The Norns, the three fates in Norse belief, have already woven the length of your life's thread. This notion that fate is fixed is a core comfort to your people. If your death is fated tomorrow, nothing can change that. If not, you'll survive, even against the odds. You nod at your father. He's never been one for affectionate words, but you sense the concern beneath his stoic advice. Around you, conversation has turned to boasting of bravery and comparing scars. Many of the men and a few women at this feast bear scars from past skirmishes. A slice across an arm, a missing finger, a limp from an old wound. These are worn proudly, marks of honour, at least of survival. One man pulls open his tunic to display a jagged scar in his chest and cheerfully recounts how a Saxon spear nearly pierced his heart. But it hit my rib instead, snapped the point right off. He passes around the broken spearhead as a sort of talisman. Thor must like this thick skull of mine, he jokes, tapping his head. At some point in the feast, the village priest leads a brief ritual. He stands before a crude wooden idol of Odin that has been brought into the hall, a weathered carving with a stern, one-eyed face. The priest raises a bowl of goat's blood, now cooled and sticky, and a sprig of pine. In a chanting voice, he thanks Odin for the past victories and asks for the god's blessing in the upcoming raid. He then sprinkles a bit of the blood on the statue and on the ensembled crowd. You feel cold droplets flick onto your forehead and furs. This blot is both a sacrifice and a blessing. You close your eyes and silently pray. All-Father Odin, War-Father, guide my spear. Let me earn glory or a worthy death. You're not alone in such thoughts. Around you, many are whispering prayers to various gods. Thor for strength and thunder, Njord for calm seas, Freya, perhaps to watch over those left at home. The Norse gods are an active presence in your world, not in person, but in every hope and fear. You truly believe Odin's eye is on you all, weighing your courage. The feasting carries on late into the night. Eventually, the goat and other dishes are reduced to picked bones. Most of the village is thoroughly drunk or at least drowsy. A few of the warriors, deep in their cups, start a rowdy chant that devolves into incoherent shouts. Two men almost come to blows over an insult involving someone's wife, but others intervene and the pair end up laughing and embracing instead, spilling ale down each other's backs. It's a typical feast, emotions high, but ultimately it bonds the community. You find yourself smiling, caught in a strange mix of excitement, camaraderie, and underlying terror of the unknown ahead. You know you should try to get some rest before tomorrow's departure at first light. You step outside the longhouse to get a breath of cool air and clear your head of the smoke and mead fumes. The night air is bitingly cold on your flushed face. Overhead, the sky is clear and glittering with stars, an endless river of lights. The snow crunches under your boots as you walk a few paces away from the hall. From here, you can see the dark silhouette of the longship bobbing gently at the pier, illuminated by the moonlight on the water. The red stripe on its sail is just visible, a slash of colour against the night. A couple of torches burn on the dock where some thralls are still loading last supplies into the hull. Barrels of water, sacks of barley, crates of dried fish. You take a deep breath of the icy air, letting it sober you. Your breath clouds around you. It's so quiet out here compared to the ferocious fall. You can hear the soft lap of the fjord's water, and in the distance a lone wolf howl echoing from the pine-clad hills. You feel the weight of reflection settle on you. In a few hours, you'll be pushing off those shores, perhaps not to return for months, or ever. You think of your mother, who earlier hugged you tightly with a forced smile, pressing a small token into your hand, a pouch of protective runes she carved to keep you safe. It's tucked now into your belt. You think of your baby brother, too young to understand that you might not see him grow up. These thoughts swirl in the cold darkness. Fear creeps in at the edges of your mind, unbidden. What if I die? The question is stark. Will it hurt? Will I shame myself? You grip the hilt of your sex at your waist, trying to channel courage. Your father's words come back. Fate is set. Fear not death, for the hour of your doom is set, and none may escape it, goes the old saying. It's something the skalds recite and the elders remind youngsters of often. You whisper it under your breath now to comfort yourself. Fear not death. The hour of your doom is set, and none may escape it. Somehow saying it does steady your heart. If it's your time, so be it. If not, you'll live to tell your own tales. Above the stars twinkle coldly, and you recall another verse an old woman once told you, said to be from a prophetic poem. None outlives the night when the Norns have spoken. In other words, when those weavers of destiny decree your end, it will come by night's end. There's no bargaining with fate. A strategy that gives you a sense of peace. You exhale and watch your breath dissipate into the starlight. Before the chill completely freezes your bones, you make your way back to your family's house. The feast is still winding down, but your mother ushered your younger siblings home earlier. You slip inside your longhouse. It's quieter here, with just the crackle of the low fire and gentle snores of your sisters who are already asleep in the corner. Your mother is still awake, kneeling by the fire and whispering a prayer while casting some herbs into the flames. The fragrant smoke of juniper and rosemary fills the air, perhaps an offering to the house spirits or a spell for protection. She looks up at you, eyes shining with worry. You give her a reassuring nod, hold up the pouch of runes she gave you. I'll keep it with me, you say softly. She rises and comes to you, wrapping you in a tight embrace. For a moment, you feel like a little child in her arms again, and a tear pricks your eye, but you blink it away and manage a smile. I'll bring you back something nice from England, you whisper, trying to cheer her up. She smiles faintly and touches your cheek. No words are needed. In this harsh world, everyone knows the possibilities. She returns to the sleeping area, lying down beside the children. You lie down too, wrapping yourself in furs for a final few hours of sleep. Your mind is racing, but the physical exhaustion of the day pulls you under. You dream fitfully of waves and distant shores, of thunder and flashing swords. In the dream, you think you see Odin wandering the battlefield with his one eye, and the Norns weaving a great tapestry with threads of blood. You wake with a start to your father's hand on your shoulder. It's time to go, he says simply. It's still dark, just before dawn. The household stirs in tense silence. You dress quickly, layering 2 tunics, 1 linen, 1 wool, pulling on your thickest wool pants and wrapping strips of cloth around your calves for warmth. Over this, your belt, your fur-lined cloak. You secure your safe knife at your belt, hang your axe at the other side, and heft your shield and spear. In the corner, your mother stands with a baby in her arms, eyes red from tears she's trying not to shed. You lean over and kiss the baby's forehead. He gurgles, oblivious. You squeeze your mother's hand. May Thor protect you, she says, voice trembling. You nod. Then you step outside with your father into the pre-dawn gloom. Down at the shore, torches bob and men are gathering. The longship looms in the water, its hull gently knocking against the wooden pilings of the dock. Round shields, brightly painted, are already hung along the gunwales of the ship, forming a wall of circled shields that will protect the rowers from wind and wave, and later from enemy arrows, hopefully. The sight of these shields, black, red, yellow designs, sends a thrill through you. This is real. This is happening. Your father strides ahead to speak with the Jarl's first mate. You linger a moment, looking back at the slope towards the village. A few figures stand there in the dim light, a family saying their last goodbyes from afar. You spot your mother's silhouette with what might be your sister next to her. You raise your hand in farewell. The figure raises an arm back. You can't make out the faces, but you know they're watching. A lump forms in your throat, but you swallow it. At the Jarl's order, the crew begins to board. There are about 40 of you on this ship, a mix of hardened warriors and green youths like yourself, plus a few thralls to do heavy manile work, though they won't be fighting unless desperation calls for it. You climb over the gunwale clumsily with your arms full of weapons, nearly dropping your spear into the water until a shipmate grabs it and laughs. Easy there. You flush and mutter thanks. You find the spot where you and your father will sit. The rowing positions are mostly assigned. Each pair of oar partners sits on a chest, which contains personal gear and also doubles as a bench. You stow your small bundle of belongings in the chest. Not that you have much, just a spare tunic, some dried fish wrapped in cloth, and that lucky pouch of runes. The sky is growing lighter, a pale steel colour, and a cold drizzle begins to fall. It speckles the ship's deck and your cloak with tiny beads of water. Just like home, jokes one man, squinting up at the clouds. The sail is currently furled, and there's little wind and will likely row out of the harbour. You take your place at an oar. The oar is long, almost 5 or 6 metres, made of solid pine. You grip it and feel the weight. Soon you'll be spending hours pushing and pulling this beam in rhythm, using your body as much as your arms. You've rowed before on fishing boats and practice runs, but never such a distance as planned now. Will you have the endurance? You suppose you'll find out. With a shout from the steersman, the men on the dock release the mooring ropes and use long poles to push the longship away from the dock. The hull begins to drift from the shore. "Rowers ready," comes the call. You plant your feet on the crossboards and brace. Row. All along the ship, oars dipped into the frigid water and pull. The longship moves, sluggish at first, then with gathering speed, cutting across the glassy fjord. You fall into the rhythm, lean forward, plunge the oar, haul back your shoulders and legs. Water gurgling under the stroke. The man in front of you leads the timing, and you match him. The drizzle has turned into a cold rain that splatters your face. But once you're rowing, you actually appreciate the cool water. You're warming up quickly from exertion. On the shore, you faintly hear cheers and shouts. The family's giving the raiders a vocal send-off. Perhaps they do it to ward off evil as much as to encourage. Either way, their voices fade as the ship glides farther into the fjord. You steal one glance over your shoulder. The village is receding. The longhouse is small against the white hillside. Smoke from their chimneys rising into the morning sky. You can just make out a cluster of figures at the water's edge waving. Women's shapes, children maybe. Then a mist veils them as the rain falls steadier. You blink raindrops from your eyes and turn back to the front. The Jarl stands near the prow, one hand on the carved dragon's head for balance, looking fiercely towards the fjord's mouth where it meets the open sea. He begins to bellow a rowing chant to keep time, a deep melodic call and response that the crew knows well. In unison, the men join, singing through gritted teeth as they row. The song is in Old Norse, of course, and droning verse about Thor's strength and the promise of gold. It helps sync us up and take our minds off the strain. Your oar dips and pulls. Already your shoulders burn, but you won't dare stop. Not an hour into the journey. A few of the lads are around you, puffing hard, and one nearly loses grip on his oar, splashing water into the boat. A nearby warrior growls, "Put your back into it. Do you plan to make me row for you too?" There's no sympathy for weakness here. You grit your teeth and keep rowing. The salty tang of sea air grows stronger as the ship approaches the fjord's exit. The rain slackens and the cloud begins to part, revealing a strip of pale blue sky to the west, an omen of better weather, you hope. Your hands, though calloused, now raw and blistering from the oar handle. You can feel each stroke tearing at your palms. Soon they'll likely bleed. Welcome to the first trial of this voyage, the simple, brutal labour of moving the ship. But there's also a beauty to it. As the sky clears, sunbeams lance down onto the water, turning into shimmering silver. The red wool sail is finally unfurled to catch a breeze, saving you rowers some effort. A cheer goes up when the sail fills, and the ship lurches forward with new speed. You shift your oar and flex your cramped fingers. Around you, the men grin and point upward. A ray of sunlight has broken through, and it's illuminating the drag prow like a spotlight, its freshly painted eyes glaring ahead. Thor has blessed the voyage after all. Someone laughs, referencing the sudden break in the weather. Another man more soberly says, Odin's watching. I can feel it. You can scan the sky, and indeed see a raven flying parallel to the ship not too far off. The sight sends a shiver down your spine. A raven, Odin's own bird? Could it be a coincidence or a sign? The raven gives a harsh caw and veers off towards the coastline. You slightly whisper a hope that it means the All-Father's favour. As the longship navigates out of the fjord into the open Kattegat Sea, the swell grows, causing the deck to pitch and roll underfoot. You quickly stow your shield and gear it tighter to make sure nothing goes overboard. The inexperienced sailors, yourself included, get a quick lesson in sea legs. You feel your stomach lurch with emotion. One of the younger men abruptly leans over the side and vomits his breakfast of fish stew into the sea to a chorus of laughter and good-natured taunts. Better now than in battle, Sven. An older warrior hollers. You chuckle, all but nervously. The sea is different to your plans and fears. It will test you just as surely as any enemy. The wind picks up, billowing the sail full and strong. The helmsman, a veteran mariner with greying hair, expertly handles the rudder to keep you on course. You're now sailing northward along the coast, and soon will turn west for open ocean once you hit the proper latitude. The sun climbing higher actually feels warm on your face when it peaks out, a rare comfort in the unforgiving environment. Water sprays up as the longship's bow slices through the waves, the cold mist sprinkling you occasionally. Despite the chill, some of the men begin to sing again, a cheerful song this time, about drinking ale in faraway lands. You join in on the chorus when you catch it. It's strangely exhilarating. Here you are, actually underway. A Viking and dragon ship heading to war. Part of you still quakes with fear, but another part is filled with grim excitement. The call of adventure that your quiet farming family could never satisfy. Your father catches your eye from a few positions down and gives you an approving nod. He looks proud, standing there with one hand on his spear, the wind tugging at his beard. He's in his element. You realise he's been hungering for this too. After years stuck farming rocks and manure, many of these men are like him, farmers most of the year, warriors when opportunity calls. Through the world remembers Vikings mainly as raiders and fighters, but most of them are indeed simple farmers, fishermen and craftsmen for most of their lives. The raiding is but an intense flash in an otherwise humble existence, but that flash is what gives life its flavour of glory, and frankly brings in an extra income to survive. Standing at your oar, you take a moment to gaze out over the sea and coastline sliding by. The pine forests and snow-capped ridges of your homeland are receding. Ahead, the vast expanse of ocean awaits. With foreign shores beyond the horizon, you inhale the salty air deeply. It's invigorating, laced with the promise of the unknown. You think about the many hardships you've already faced since awakening. Bitter cold, choking smoke, backbreaking labour, discomfort and danger at every turn. And that was just a normal morning in this life. Now you're embarking on something even more arduous. A wiry grin tugs at your lips as you realise how much a modern person would balk at every piece of this existence. The stench alone would send some running. Not to mention the lack of comfort, the constant threat of violence, the absolute necessity of physical toughness. You silently chuckle to yourself. Truly, A person from centuries in the future used to soft beds and hot baths wouldn't last a single day living as a Viking amid these brutal conditions. Even you, born to it, find it challenging each and every sunrise, but here you are pushing onward. The longship turns westward now, the prow cutting into the unknown. Your hands grip the oar again as the call comes to row for a while to assist the turn. The sail flaps and then fills from the side. The ship leans and surges forward, fully headed out to sea. Your heart drums in your chest. You offer up one more quick prayer to Odin, to Thor, to whichever god might be listening, to watch over you and your kin on the journey ahead. There's no guarantee of it any of you will make it back, but fate will run its course. You square your shoulders and settle into the rowing rhythm. The gnar at wood, the creak of ropes, the crash of distant waves. These become your world now. At the last sight of your homeland fades behind you, you feel a mix of resolve and resignation. Whatever comes, be it blood or gold or storm or calm, you will meet it as a Viking should, with courage and a touch of dark humour. A thin smile comes to your lips. Your day as a Viking has only begun, and already you've experienced more toil, fear, and poor life than most modern folk ever will. Whether you'll survive even this one day out here, well, you'll find out soon. You adjust your grip on the oar, muscles aching but steady, and keep rowing into the great unknown. Your fate woven by the Norns and Odin's eye upon you. In this moment, as the spray hits your face and howls in your ears, you truly understand why it is said, you wouldn't last a day as a Viking, and yet, here you are, living it, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, on the razor's edge of history.